The Five Satins are an American doo-wop group, best known for their 1956 million-selling song, In the Still of the Night. Career: the group, formed in New Haven, Connecticut, consisted of leader Frederick Paris, Lou Peebles, Stanley Dortch, Ed Martin and Jim Freeman and Nat Mosley in 1954. With little success, the group reorganized, with Dortch and Peebles leaving, and new member Al Denby entering. The group then recorded In the Still of the Night, a very big hit in the United States which was originally released as the B-side to the single, The Jones Girl. The single was initially issued on the tiny local Standard label and after some local Connecticut sales, it was released the following year on the New York label Ember, and In the Still of the Night ended up charting at number 3 on the R&B chart and number 25 on the pop charts. 2 singles later, the follow-up track Pretty Baby got weeks of airplay on Powerful Chum in Toronto, in November of 1957. An August 1958 release, A Night to Remember, got some Boston airplay. During late 1959 and early 1960, their classic 45 side garnered renewed current airplay, becoming a top 10 hit in all 3 listed markets. In the Still of the Night became an even bigger hit when it appeared as the lead track on Original Sound Records' Oldies but Goodies Volume 1. The series eventually ran to 15 volumes. The series has been in continual print in one form or another since that first volume was released in 1959. In total, their signature track sold over 1 million copies and was awarded a gold disc. A case of painfully bad timing affected the group's lead singer. Uncle Sam had come calling, and Paris entered the army very soon after the huge success of In the Still of the Night, forcing the group to reorganize again, with Martin, Freeman, Tommy Kilbrew, Jesse Murphy and new lead Bill Baker. Baker quickly proved to be a highly capable replacement, however, as this lineup immediately hit big with another timeless, very successful effort, Billy Dawn Smith's To the Isle, in September 1957. Upon Paris' return from the army, a new lineup was assembled, consisting of Paris, Lou Peebles, Sylvester Hopkins, Richie Freeman and Wheeze Forbes. The group would be briefly known as Fred Paris and the Scarlets, until the Baker-led group split up. At this point, they reverted to the Five Satins name. According to Old Radio Survey Repository ARSA, the following 45 sides charted in some markets: I'll Be Seeing You, 3/60. Your Memory, 7/1960. The Time, 10/60. These Fooling Things Are Bigger with a Dream, 12/60. Till the End, 11/61. The Masquerade Is Over, 7/62. Remember Me, 8/63. And Ain't Gonna Dance, 7/64. In total, the group appeared on an unusually high number of record labels, even for their era, when such label hopping was far more of a common practice. In 1965, Paris retooled his band, and started a 3-year run of getting substantial airplay almost exclusively inside his home state of Connecticut, as Fred Paris and the Restless Hearts. Songs included No Use in Crying, 5/65. Blushing Bride Giving My Love to You, 8/66. Bring It Home to Daddy, which hit number 1 locally in October '66. I'll Be Hangin' On, a number 11 local hit in April '67. And ending this career phase with an updated version of their classic hit, I'll Remember, In the Still of the Night '67, in August '67. By the early 1970s the group was Paris, Peebles, Richie Freeman, Jimmy Curtis and Corky Rogers. Dark at the Top of My Heart, 6/71, had garnered them still more Connecticut airplay. With the smash hit 1973 film American Graffiti and its nostalgic soundtrack sparking a renewed interest in both old hits and old groups, music mogul Don Kirshner sought to capitalize by signing Paris and his group to his own Kirshner label. He restored the group's moniker back to Five Satins, and released 2 45s, Very Precious Oldies You're a Love, 1973. And Two Different Worlds Love Is Such a Beautiful Thing, 1974. Both singles flopped, however. They continued recording into the 1980s, with Paris, Richie Freeman, Curtis and Nate Marshall. In 1981, A medley craze had suddenly engulfed top 40 radio, led by the Beatle hit Laden Stars on 45 medley, performed by some Dutch studio sound-alike musicians. The track hit #1 in the US. In response, Capitol had quickly spliced up and issued genuine old hit medleys, for both the Beatles and the Beach Boys. Both of these medleys only narrowly missed reaching the national top 10. Noticing this new trend, however, longtime Connecticut music producer Marty Markiewicz knew that he was still performing at a very high level. Markiewicz also happened to be working for Elektra Records at the time. He got an idea. He both asked for and was given permission by his employer to bring Paris and Company in, on each his own time, to produce a medley of classic 50s hits. Just to see what would come out of it. The plan was to use the Satins' own classic hit as the medley's final song. The result was Memories of Days Gone By, which became the group's first new entry on the Billboard Hot 100 since 1960. And although it only peaked at number 71 in early 1982, it did again reach the top 10 at New Haven's WKCI and Hartford's and WDRC. The latter was especially satisfying, as airplay for Paris in the Hartford market had always been tough to come by, even during the 60s days of huge downstate radio play. In response to their successful medley, Elektra requested a full LP. For this release, the 5 was dropped, and the album was issued as by Frederick Paris and the Satins. 2 more singles were released from it. The first, a remake of the Delphonics' 1970 hit Didn't I, again got solid airplay in New Haven, in November of 1982. Meanwhile, Bill Baker had started his own Five Satins group around this same time, with former Satins Sylvester Hopkins and Hopkins brothers Arthur Count Hopkins, Essa and Frank. By the late 1980s, this group consisted of Baker, Harvey Potts, Jr., Anthony Hoffler and Octavio de Leon. In 1990, the group was joined by Jimmy Wilson stepping into the first tenor position for Don Simpson. Fred Paris and Richie Freeman continued to perform. Bill Baker died in 1994. Awards and recognition. In 2003, the Five Satins were inducted into the Vocal Group Hall of Fame. Present day. One of the original members of the Five Satins now works in the cafeteria at the University of New Haven. Jim Freeman lives in Newark, Iowa and owns a pest control company. Wes Forbes is a psychologist in the state of California, currently employed with Alliant International University as a training director. Richie Freeman is the house sound engineer at NY's famed Iridium Jazz Club. Fred Paris and Richie Freeman are still actively performing occasionally with the Five Satins. The lineup now also includes Eugene Dobbs, originally the lead singer and founder of New Colors, and Nadina Perry. They are supported by musicians Pat Marafite, Greg Barino, Jerry Langley and James Moore. The group performs regularly throughout the Northeast and they continue to actively record new material. Hit singles, A Memories of Days Gone By also peaked at number 32 on Adult Contemporary Singles. References. External links, The Five Satins Vocal Group Hall of Fame page, Bill Baker Graveset, Tom Simon's article on the Five Satins.